All right, today we're talking about this powerful, kind of invisible force that makes us instinctively favor us over them. It's this bias that shapes our friendships, our politics, really so much of our world.
Okay, let's just dive right in with a question that really gets to the core of this. Think about it. That amazing feeling you get when your team wins? That's not just about sports. It's actually a perfect little window into this super deep-seated human bias.
So what is this thing called? Well, it's known as in-group favoritism. And it's pretty simple, really. It's just this powerful tendency to prefer members of our own group. And that group could be anything: your family, your favorite team, even your country. And what's wild is that social psychologists have seen this everywhere, in every single culture on Earth.
And hey, this isn't some newfangled idea. Not at all. In fact, you can go back over 100 years and you'll find sociologist William Sumner pointing out that we humans are just, well, we're groupish creatures. We're pretty much hardwired to form these bonds and then, instinctively favor our own.
But why? Why do we do this? What's really the driving force behind this powerful instinct? Well, social psychologists have basically boiled it down to two leading explanations.
Okay, so the first one is called realistic conflict theory. And honestly, it's pretty straightforward. The idea is simple. We favor our own team when we're all competing for the same limited resources. And that could be anything, right? Food, land, or even just a trophy.
This was shown in this just famous experiment called the Robbers Cave experiment. What researchers did was they took a group of 11-year-old boys, brought them to what looked just like a normal summer camp, and then they split them into two groups.
Now, at first, everything was fine and dandy. But then, and this is the key part, as soon as the researchers introduced competitions with actual prizes on the line, the two groups developed this intense negativity, this real hostility toward each other. That us versus them instinct just kicked in with surprising speed.
So here's the really crucial point. The only thing that made the conflict dissolve was when the researchers introduced what they called a superordinate goal. Basically, a problem so big that both groups had to work together to solve it. And just like that, poof, the animosity just melted away.
But wait, competition isn't the whole story here. The second theory, social identity theory, was shown through this really clever experiment. Researchers found that even when they created groups based on completely random, trivial stuff, I'm talking like which painting they liked more, people still favored their new in-group.
So what we have here are two really powerful drivers. On one hand, you've got this tangible competition for actual stuff, but on the other hand, it's about something way more personal, our own ego, our own identity. See, when our group wins, we feel like we won. And that little boost to our self-esteem, that's a super powerful motivator.
And get this bias isn't just some psychological quirk. No, it is literally wired into our biology. I mean, all the way down to our hormones and the very structures of our brains.
Scientists have actually pinpointed a hormone called oxytocin. You've probably heard of it as the love hormone, right? Well, it turns out its effects are a lot more specific and kind of more complicated than you might think. So oxytocin basically acts like a chemical switch. It cranks up our positive feelings, things like trust, empathy, cooperation. But, and this is the important part, research shows it does this mainly for people we see as part of our group. It can even make us more willing to lie or to defend somebody as long as it benefits us.
And yeah, the brain's role in this is crystal clear. Neuroscientists have found that a very specific part of the brain, the medial prefrontal cortex, it just lights up when we think about our group's good qualities. And guess what? That's the same area that's active when we think about ourselves. So it's directly linking our group identity to our personal sense of self. How cool is that?
Okay, so this isn't just some abstract theory or a chemical reaction in a lab. This us versus them thing has profound measurable effects on our society. I mean, it shapes everything from gender dynamics to politics. Take gender, for example. There was this one study that measured people's automatic attitudes, and it found that women show a much stronger preference for their own gender. How much stronger? In this study, it was 4.5 times stronger than the preference men showed for other men. That's a big difference.
And in politics? Oh yeah, you can see this bias clearly at play. This data from Pew Research in 2023 shows that a quarter of black voters and about 17% of Hispanic voters said that a shared background with a candidate was very important to them. Now compare that to just 5% of white voters.
So you can see how this affects who we help, who we trust, and who we decide to forgive. Studies show that political partisans, they're way more likely to help and forgive people from their own party. And other experiments have shown this bias can even pop up along ethnic lines in, say, economic trust games, though interestingly, sometimes only in one gender. Okay, this all sounds pretty deeply ingrained, right? And, well, it is. But what if our groups aren't as permanent as we think they are? There's this fascinating study from the 2008 US presidential election that gives us a really interesting clue.
So, researchers tracked Democrats right after that super fierce primary battle between Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama. Back in June, and then again in August, supporters of each candidate showed this really strong bias. They totally favored their own side. But by September, something had changed. The bias? It was completely gone.
So what happened? Well, here's the crucial point. As soon as a new, bigger us was formed, the entire Democratic Party, to face a common opponent, those smaller, competing us versus them dynamics, they just faded away. It's basically the robber's cave experiment, but playing out in the real world of politics.
And that leaves us with one last thought to chew on. This instinct to favor our group, it's powerful, it's ancient, it's part of us. But knowing it exists and understanding how it works and seeing just how flexible it can be, well, that gives us the power to see it in ourselves. And maybe, just maybe, the power to choose our groups a little more wisely.